Again, thank you for coming. I see some more people came in while we were running the video. So happy to have everybody here today to celebrate with us. It's a big deal today for a book to be published, especially a book as beautiful as Solemnity Rites by Loralee Clark. Loralee, how are you feeling today?
A little overwhelmed, but good.
Well, well, how does it feel to hold your book in your hands? How did you get this book?
Oh, I mean, when I first when I first fell in love with language, which was in second grade, I was all about antonyms and synonyms and homonyms, and I just was entranced. And I always knew that I wanted to write. Um, but when I sent my manuscript out and it was accepted, I remember saying to Chris, this is a scam, right? This can't be real. This isn't really happening, is it? And uh, and it's just a thrill. And to be able to not only have my words represented this way, but also to have my artwork in there, I, it's just amazing to me. Um, it's been such a deep journey in terms of really being very vulnerable, not just internally claiming, oh yeah, I'm an artist, but to have a physical representation. I'm an artist, I'm a poet. So yeah, it's been wonderful.
Wonderful feeling somebody accepts your work, which you already accepted as you put your words to page and then developed it more and more. Which was first, the art or the poetry?
Probably the poetry, um, in terms of like who I am and how I developed. I think I was a poet first. I started writing poems when I was in second grade, and then I didn't start doing art until I was in high school. And I was always very proud because I got awards for both my writing and my art. And then, you go through life and things kind of fall through the cracks. And I didn't come back to it until I was older. Um, but yeah, I think I've always been a writer. And now I think I'm starting to accept that I'm also an artist.
Do you have any other books in the works, any more chapbooks or other poetry collections?
Yeah, I have I have um one, the Key of Trees, the Harmony in the Key of Trees, that I'm currently trying to get published, which is about a, a girl who, it's all poetry, but it's about a girl who looks to her ecosystem to tell her who she is and to parent her. I have one that I've written called Neolithic Imaginings, which is a chapbook about different Neolithic monuments across Europe and just reimagine myths of um, what they meant, because all we have are the stones, right? We don't have anything written. So much of it is speculation, so much of it is myth that's gone through culture. So I put together, I think, 15 or 16 poems about just imagining what Neolithic life was like. A couple of them actually are in here. Um, and uh, and then I also have a very short, a micro chapbook, Wrestling Stone, which is about uh, my decision whether or not to become a mother. And this summer, I've started writing another chapbook about bees. Um, so I'll be reading one of those poems later today.
I used to actually work for a beekeeping company
Oh yeah.
many years ago. I was in the accounting department, but the lady that sat next to me was the one that shipped out the queen. So
Oh
sometimes a little buzzing going on in the next desk. And that little bitty matchbox size
yeah.
uh, shipping crate. So well, that's exciting. And I love how you're all of your work kind of ties into the natural and the nature and, the whole historical aspect and progression. It's really a wonderful, sounds like a wonderful series of collections, and
Let's
everybody's
hope
going to be
let's
in
hope publishers
awe.
think that too.
I think they will. I think they will. Best wishes to you with this.
Thank you.
Welcoming today too guest Theresa Murphy and their Corey. They have written on the back cover blurb along with Louisa Gloria. And so we are welcoming Teresa and there to share poetry today. They'll share each poem of Loralee's and then each a poem of their own. So we're going to start with Teresa.
Hi, thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Loralee, for inviting me to be part of this book launch. I'm so honored to be here to help celebrate the publication of Solemnity Rites. And I think with so many people becoming increasingly disconnected from each other, from nature, from themselves, it seems like we could all do with some wise words about what binds us together. And the poems in Solemnity Rites are all stories of connection to nature, connection to our ancestors, connection to everything around us. And through the poems, Loralee explores such universal experiences as joy, grief, and resilience. She goes from ancient times all the way to the present. And it was really, really hard for me to choose a poem to read today. But one of my favorites is Becoming Human. And Becoming Human is all about our relationships. And it's an eloquent reminder of just how important those relationships are, particularly our relationships with our kin. And I want to start with Becoming Human. And then I want to read a poem that I wrote called Divining Paradise, which also addresses relationships with our family members. Becoming Human, an imagining of Homo Naledi. The one who pushed him forth through blood moved no more. The moon's light had left her eyes. He drew his arm down her face to push away sadness. Her fingers curled close and would no longer hold his head. Over many wobbling nights, he lay next to her, not wanting to leave. The kin brought him food and water. When she no longer smelled like the one he had known, the kin gathered to drag her where the earth could swallow her in its caverns and keep her safe. They walked long into the dark, carrying her weight down into the long umbilicus, pushing her to slip into its mouth. The fires burned low, casting death shadows along the walls. After the chanting, the rocking, the stories of connection, memory, they left her there, protected under the earth and dimming light. When he wanted her again, he could climb down and sing into the blackness. She would hear. Soon, others brought their moon dead, feeding them down into the earth's mouth to keep them close, pushing against time's impassable wall. And when the one I pushed through with blood stopped her moving, each pore in my skin screamed, burning hot like fire. The keeping in the earth would not be enough. I held her to my body as we began to stumble into the earth. I gave away all the moon's time in my eyes to stay with her in the dimming light, feeding the soil our blood and bones, our songs, down passageways through time's rooms. Divining Paradise. I squirmed in the pew between my mother and father. My crinoline petticoat scratched the skin beneath my baby blue dress. I crossed my ankles at the lace line of my white socks, jiggled one black patent leather shoe. The preacher brayed about the bride of Christ, the church. Those outside would burn in the lake of fire. I prayed for my grandmother. On Sunday morning, she stayed home to fry chicken and bake red devil cakes. On Monday morning, I played beneath the giant shade tree in my grandmother's yard. I did not see the snake, did not hear it hiss, did not sense it slithering toward me. Queen, my grandmother's guard dog, snapped up that snake. She shook it like a dust mop. Grabbing a hoe, my grandmother chopped off the serpent's head, doused it with lighter fluid, and struck a match. As the snake's dark scales melted away, snakelets spun from its womb till they were consumed in the flames. On Monday night, I dreamed the sleep of children. I slept the sleep of children who dream of the people who love them. Dressed as torch-bearing goddesses, my grandmother and I walked a rocky path, no street of gold beneath our feet. We plucked pears from an evergreen tree. In our paradise, we spoke with no talking serpent, tasted the flesh of no apple, heard the voice of no man. Thank you.
Teresa, beautiful work.
Thank you.
Really love that. Okay, Thayer, ready for you.
I better unmute. I'm quite a new friend of Loralee's. We met in Louisa's classes, and we just realized we both lived in Williamsburg and started getting together to share poetry and thoughts about poetry and life and everything else. So it's been a great delight to me. What I love about her poetry, it's so different for one thing. It just is, and so imaginative, is the how she weaves into her poems the ancient, the primitive, the human elements of life and brings us into some kind of intimacy with that and brings it right up to the present. And so it's sort of that ancient knowing. And I think at some point she says that ancient knowing, something about our ancient knowing encoded in our cells. So we bring that intimacy back from eons and eons and eons into who we are now. And I love that concept, and I love a lot of these poems. I'm going to read a poem called Gravity. It's in the second section of the book. I think the one Teresa read was in the first section of the book. This one is called Gravity. It's a surprise every time when I see a beetle, but it's really a brittle curled leaf. A thin stick, but it's a dried worm. A bit of bumpy rock, but it's a tiny toad. And I wonder, are the seasons simply inhalations and exhalations, the pupils of my eyes black holes? Am I pulled forever in because even gravity cannot escape? Is it a flattened squirrel or shred of tire in the road? Dung or a cicada casing? Flower petals or tiny, furry, white aphids of a sort? These ambiguities shouldn't surprise me. After all, the solar system is perhaps an atom with its massive empty space and small orbiting particles, like the sky and oceans of the earth, so vast and uninterrupted. The carbon in my body was formed in a star over billions of years ago. My organs or the earth's, lungs or rainforest, isn't it all the same? I breathe out spring, aware after all that sometimes all of my life is the same to the gravity of our eyes. think that's beautiful. I'm going to read a short poem of mine. It's called Epiphany. It was two goats, statues still behind the fence, eyes gray, glassy as marbles. It was the tufts of grass they stood on, the clumsy sheep behind them, and the clods of earth, all dark and damp. It was the way as we drew near, they inched stupidly towards Tom, and the way he scratched their noses that sent the shards of the kaleidoscope tumbling, turning everything suddenly precious. It was then I knew that somewhere deep inside, goats sing praises, sheep rejoice, grass adores its loveliness, and dirt is lit from within. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful. Appreciate that. Loralee, you're up.
I'm up. So with Solemnity Rites, I wanted to answer the questions, how can we sense the ways that history is written in our bodies? How can we feel the land in our body? When did we become human? How did we begin written storytelling? And so I think in recreating a story, there's a certain claiming in it as well. That when you write about it, then you can feel as if that experience still lives within you. I know that most of us learned that written language was, oh shoot, I keep doing this with my computer. I just lost everybody. Just a sec. Okay, now I'm back. Sorry. I have no idea what I was saying. Oh, written language. So we know that written language started in Mesopotamia with the cuneiform, and it was for economics. I have one cow, you have 2 barrels of wheat. But at the same time, actually a little bit later, on the other side of the world, a different sort of writing was beginning, and that was for prophecy. So on page 16, so I think it's still in section 1 of the book, I wrote evolutions of tongue. In China's Anyang marshes, yellow silt settled and the tortoise multiplied, feasting on the soft peony flower, its nectar settling deep in their sweet marrow. This was the marrow to be called upon by kings, the marrow which would parch itself to bones' walls, to feed its people's answers for the droughts, the flooding, and disease. Emperor Shangtai Khan sent his servants to choose the biggest, oldest, the one with the most history of nectar in its shell, while he oversaw the fire's birth. Entering the palace grounds, 4 men returned, their shoulders burdened with the long pole from which the tortoise hung, its thick, squat legs, its near-severed head swinging slack, hidden by the sun's dying light. After the men's shoes marked sticky blood through the kitchen, after the cook sliced off the rest of its head, letting it fall to the floor, after the pot was filled with cold water from the spring, the heavy carcass was scrubbed and placed inside, boiling through most of the evening. Later, its black skin was scraped from the muscle. The cook detached the shell and sent for a man to bring its husk to its grave of fire. The emperor and his reader sat stirring the coals in the open air, imparting what they should like the tortoise to explain. His reader bore a hole into the underside of the husk and lay it in the pit, the deep heart of tortoise rising from the heat, fissures of possibility revealing themselves, and the stillness of language was born. And then the second poem that I would like to share is one that Luisa Igloria had suggested as a free write. She said, let's do a field guide of whatever you're interested in. And I thought, oh, I'm interested in bees. So it is through her suggestion that this poem came to life. And it's part of the chapbook that I'm writing now. Let me see real quick. So I just wanted to say real quickly that with humans responsible for environmental pollution and our contributions to colony collapse, I feel like it's really important for us to share bee stories once again. They used to be very normative in cultures. And I think it's going to be helpful if our culture remembers the way in which civilizations were founded on and relied upon these creatures for our health, for economies, and for our spiritual enrichment. So, with that, a field guide to bees. Witness women, me, if you will, you, if you can, standing together, a band of prayer beads encircling our necks. Each bead, not ground rose petals or eggshells, no seeds or wood, is ancient. Each bead a living, humming sister. Our fingertips caress each one, bumbles and sweats, carpenters, honeys, leaf cutters, the furrowers, diggers, longhorns, masons, all the beautiful wings of those who don't fit nicely into groupings like sculptured resins, wool carders, turrets, and plum mining. As we touch each one, we solemnly ask, teach me foraging as holy practice, mutualism's magic, plants as equal partners. We entreat, when goddesses and gods whisper devotion and candor, your wings filter this knowing to our ears if we listen carefully. How can we learn to revel in willful madness, imbibe glistening communal unity, that which binds us to our ecosystem, the give and take of purpose, fertility, renewal? As our fingers hover above, we probe, how do you nest, singularly, together? How do drowsy hums and wing beats celebrate the pursuit of reproduction, of throwing your full self into the curve of the divine's arm? What can we learn, following the forward double back movements from blossom to blossom, pollen and nectar sticking to our tongues, arms, in between our legs? And if we sleep in daffodil trumpets, will our dreams be cloying and jubilant, driven by perfumed ultraviolent cadences? Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. And I would like to ask if you could put a note in the chat of greeting and wishes for Loralee. So we have something like as a keepsake from today. And I would also like Loralee to select a number between 1 and 14.
That would be 13.
Okay. All right, let me just take a look and see who's 13. Margaret Carlson, sorry. Tiny print. Margaret Carlson, you have won a copy of Solemnity Rites. If you would want to, private message me into the chat, your address, and I also need your phone number because the delivery requires that. I will send that to you. Congratulations. I would also like to open this up if anyone has anything they'd like to share, any comments, wishes, or anything for Loralee.
Or questions.
Or questions. just feel free to speak out. Shy group. I'll start. Loralee, it's been such fun to work with you. You've been such a delight.
Oh,
Your
thank you.
enthusiasm, your quick response, your willingness to have an open mind, and I'm expanding my mind as well. I think, and I'm so blessed when someone wants to design their cover and then it turns out so beautifully.
I'm so
Um,
blessed that I, I never in a million years. I mean, usually all the stories I've heard is you have to fight with the editor and the publisher, and I just thought, wow, what an opportunity. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and for you providing your beautiful work. I got a little backstory. Laura Lee and I got together on a Zoom call and brought up the application file to work on the cover. And so she actually, kind of play by play, we worked on this together. And thank you to your husband for scanning your artwork over, and we were able to figure out exactly what we were going to do. And it just kind of, it was so smoothly. I love that when it works out.
Yes,
It was meant to
very
be.
much so.
I have a I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just wondering how or when you got interested in all this Neolithic, you know, evolution science, because you combine it so well with what I call mysticism, or, so the mystical or mythical or mysterious or whatever you want to call it. Where did that come from? That's
Good
my
question.
question.
Good question, because it's really at the core of how I write. So I was raised by a man who was my neighbor, John Coughlin. He was an entomologist. He studied bugs, but he was also a botanist. And he would take me to he taught at the vocational high school in Augusta, Maine. So he would take me in his truck and he would teach me. I would learn all these things. My dad is a zoologist and a chemist. So we'd go out for walks in the woods. I grew up in Maine, and he would point out all of these incredible things and it was like nature was my classroom. I married a physicist. You're down in the corner on my screen. Um, when we went out on our first date, he said, uh, well, I'm a theoretical physicist. And I said, well, what does that mean? Like, I'm a lay person. Explain it to me. And he's an incredible teacher. So he was able to explain it really well. And I said, oh my God, I said, well, I'm a poet. We're doing the same thing. We're just trying to find the answer to life, the universe, and everything, right?
What's going
Uh,
on here? Yeah.
and so I've always had a voracious appetite. I've always been very curious. When I took a writing course in college, it was to kind of train you to teach others in a writing center. And um, Professor Kale would say, okay, you're going to write about this and it's got to be structured this way. And I used it to kind of go on rants like, why are we so obsessed with Greek and Roman mythology? What about Egyptian mythology? That came before. So I was always digging into the past and questioning what makes us human? What creates our cultures? How does that serve us? So did that answer?
Yeah, it's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a great question there. Thank you. Anybody else? Oh,
Debbie,
Hey,
hey,
I made it. Yay. My
yay.
computer was being so ugly, but it's better now. Uh, First off, in hearing all that, my first thought was, well, how could she but be a poet with all of these influences that she had. And, science is always looking, I think, for patterns and,
Yeah.
the way that things fit together and all of that. But I think poets do that too. And also not just a cold analytical view of the world. And Loralee's poetry is so filled with intense emotion, I believe very strongly. And I'm often just really uh, blown away by the way she attacks a subject. And so, like I said on the thing, I always find her writing very inspiring and encouraging. I told her the other day I was a dilettante compared to her, because I'm really learned. Well, I was a young kid when I started writing like she was, but there wasn't really anyone at home to encourage me. So I kind of went la la la, and did different things. But her interest and the way she goes about her research is always very impressive to me. And I see that attention to detail in her poetry, and it is a wonderful thing. And I'm just happy that I could make it here today.
Thank you, Debbie. I'm so happy you could too. And honestly, yeah, it was no one in my family is a writer. It was all the science that influenced me. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you're right. There's pattern recognition and analysis, and I feel like that is kind of how I approach my subjects when I write a poem. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming out today and for being a part of this wonderful celebration. Again, congratulations to Loralee.
And thank
And
you so much, Teresa and Thayer, for participating and
yes,
everybody for coming. It means so much. Thank you. And
thank you.
Lisa for hosting and putting this together. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'll be putting it up on our podcast and also on YouTube. So drop the link when that happens. Well, thank you all so much, and you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.